corruption poisoning his company. That evening, Marcus reviewed surveillance footage and employee records. The pattern was undeniable: missing jewelry during Vanessa's shifts, manipulated sales reports, and a culture that rewarded deceit while punishing integrity. It was no longer just about business. It was a battle for the soul of Everhart Jewelers. That evening, as the last customers filtered out and the gleam of the showroom dimmed, Marcus Reynolds retreated to the manager's office under the pretense of tidying up. But his real mission was far from routine. He stared intently at the KPI reports pinned to the corkboard, a supposed measure of success. There it was, glaring in black and white. Maya Johnson was leading in every key category: client retention, sales conversions, and customer satisfaction. Yet, her name was conspicuously absent from the bonus list. Instead, the names of Vanessa Clark and Lily Carter appeared, rewarded despite their paltry sales and involvement in the thefts Marcus had uncovered. The numbers told a clean, polished story to outsiders, but beneath the surface was a corrosive injustice that gnawed at everything he'd built. Marcus's eyes burned as he traced the threads of deception: vanishing inventory linked to Vanessa's shifts, falsified reports smeared with Lily's fingerprints, and a culture that allowed corruption to flourish in plain sight. But it wasn't just about stolen jewels or manipulated metrics. It was about the dignity stolen from Maya and others like her, those who worked tirelessly, but were erased and ignored. This wasn't the reckoning Marcus had hoped for when he disguised himself as a janitor to uncover the truth. It was far worse. The rot had seeped deeper, hidden behind the veneer of professionalism and polished smiles. Yet, in the midst of this decay, Maya had stood tall, silent but unwavering, the only beacon of integrity. Determined, Marcus felt the quiet fury settle deep in his bones, not the kind that bursts forth recklessly, but the kind that plans with purpose. This was personal. This was about restoring the soul of Everhart Jewelers. He wouldn't let this injustice stand, not on his watch. As he prepared for the confrontation ahead, Marcus knew he would need to send a clear message. Favoritism, theft, and prejudice would no longer be tolerated. The store bearing his name needed to reflect the values he had fought to uphold: respect, honesty, and equality. Maya's quiet strength had opened his eyes. Now it was time to act. The next morning at Everhart Jewelers was unlike any other. The usual hum of polite chatter and clinking jewelry cases was replaced by a tense silence that hung thick in the air, sharp enough to cut through the store's polished veneer. At precisely 8:45 a.m., an unexpected message buzzed through the store's internal communication system. All staff were to report to the main floor at 9 a.m. Sharp. No explanations, no exceptions. Whispers rippled through the employees as they gathered near the central display island, the morning sunlight streaming down like a spotlight. Vanessa Clark, usually poised and commanding, now wore a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lily Carter fidgeted nervously by the marble podium, casting furtive glances around the room. And standing quietly to the side was Maya Johnson, calm, composed, eyes steady with a quiet resolve that belied the storm beneath. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor, crisp and measured. All eyes turned as Marcus Reynolds entered, no longer disguised in janitor coveralls, but clad in a perfectly tailored navy suit. His presence shifted the atmosphere instantly. The weight of authority radiated from him, not with arrogance, but with a steady, commanding force. He looked directly at the room, voice calm yet unyielding. "My name is Marcus Reynolds, founder and CEO of Everhart Jewelers," he began. "Over the past 2 weeks, I've walked these floors not as your boss, but as one of you. I have seen how this store operates beneath the surface, the loyalty, the excellence, but also the prejudice and betrayal." The silence was electric. Vanessa's confident mask cracked. Lily's pale face betrayed her fear. Marcus's gaze softened as it landed on Maya. "Maya Johnson," he said, "you have carried this store on your back, unnoticed and unrecognized. You showed character when no one else did. For that, you have my deepest respect." Then, with unwavering finality, Marcus announced the termination of Vanessa and Lily for theft, misconduct, and breach of trust. Security quietly arrived to escort them out. Their exit met not with applause, but with a heavy, stunned hush. Turning back to Maya, Marcus lowered his voice. "I am appointing you interim floor manager, effective immediately, This store needs leadership grounded in integrity and respect, qualities you embody." Maya nodded slowly, the weight of the moment settling over her. At last, the invisible had become impossible to ignore. An injustice, threatening to destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. This undercover mission was no longer just about business. It was personal. In that moment, Marcus vowed to uncover the truth and restore the dignity that had been stolen from the very people who deserved it most. As Marcus Reynolds moved silently through the gleaming aisles of Everhart Jewelers, disguised as a janitor, he began to see the true face of the company he had built. It wasn't the sparkling diamonds or the polished marble that defined this place. It was the people. And sadly, many of them were caught in a web of favoritism and prejudice that ran deeper than he had imagined. From his hidden vantage point, Marcus watched the store manager, Vanessa Clark, glide through the showroom like a queen surveying her kingdom. Dressed impeccably in designer attire, Vanessa wielded her authority with an icy confidence. But beneath the surface, Marcus sensed something far more sinister. She barely acknowledged him in his coveralls, dismissing him with a curt flick of her wrist, and her gaze lingered with thinly veiled disdain on others who didn't fit her ideal image of professionalism. Nearby, Lily Carter, the receptionist, transformed whenever wealthy white customers entered. Her voice rose several octaves, her posture stiffened into perfect attention, and she showered these select clients with rehearsed charm. But when a middle-aged black woman in scrubs wandered hesitantly near the pearl display, neither Vanessa nor Lily moved. The cold silence was a stark contrast to the warmth Maya had shown that very customer moments before. Marcus's heart tightened as he saw the cruel undercurrents, subtle whispers, knowing glances, and dismissive body language, all silently policing who belonged and who didn't. It was clear the store's polished exterior masked a hierarchy not based on merit, but on skin tone and social standing. The moment of truth came when Marcus caught Vanessa in a moment of betrayal. Late one afternoon, Vanessa stealthily unlocked a high-security case that held rare, limited-edition jewels. With practiced ease, she slipped a dazzling diamond pendant worth tens of thousands into her blazer pocket. Lily hovered nervously nearby, complicity written all over her face. Watching from the shadows, Marcus felt a surge of anger, not just at the theft, but at the broken trust and moral decay. And there, standing quietly nearby, was Maya, whose steady gaze met Vanessa's with a courage that spoke louder than words. Maya's presence was a challenge, a silent demand for justice in a place that had forgotten its meaning. Marcus knew then that this was no longer about numbers or reports. It was about reclaiming integrity, restoring dignity, and confronting the rot at the heart of Everhart Jewelers before it consumed everything. The tension in Everhart Jewelers had been quietly building, but it reached a breaking point one late afternoon when Maya Johnson witnessed something she could no longer ignore. From across the showroom, she caught the unmistakable movement of store manager Vanessa Clark's hand, slipping a priceless diamond pendant into her blazer pocket. The weight of the stolen jewel wasn't just in its value. It was the betrayal of everything Everhart stood for. Maya's heart pounded, but she didn't act impulsively. Years of being overlooked and dismissed had taught her the power of patience and strategy. She approached Vanessa cautiously, voice steady yet resolute. "You know you're not supposed to access that case without a second key holder," Maya said quietly, careful not to draw unwanted attention. Vanessa turned, her practiced smile faltering for a moment, replaced by a flicker of irritation. "I'm just doing inventory," she replied smoothly, but Maya saw through the act. She pressed on. "If there's a mistake later, I don't want it blamed on someone who didn't touch anything." The room felt charged, the air thick with unspoken threats. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You're stepping out of line, Maya," she hissed, voice low and venomous. "You're lucky to have this job. Don't forget that. If you speak up, I'll make sure you're out the door before your next lunch break." Maya froze, weighing the risk against her conscience. She thought of her family, her sick mother, her brothers, the bills piling up, but she refused to back down. "Rules are meant to protect us all," she said firmly. "Not just you." Vanessa leaned in, her whisper dripping with menace. "Those rules don't protect people like you. They protect people like me." The insult was clear, meant to silence and intimidate. Maya's hands trembled slightly, but her gaze held steady. Unbeknownst to them, Marcus Reynolds, the CEO disguised as a janitor, had witnessed the entire exchange. his fists clenched in anger, not the explosive kind, but the quiet, simmering rage of a man who knew this injustice had to end. Maya's courage lit a spark within him, a resolve to confront the Aussie. In the heart of downtown, the gleaming facade of Everhart Jewelers stood like a fortress of wealth and exclusivity. The towering glass windows reflected the city's hustle, while inside, the store sparkled with brilliance. Rows of glittering gemstones resting on velvet cushions, crystal chandeliers casting dazzling light on polished marble floors. To any outsider, Everhart was the epitome of luxury, a place where elegance reigned supreme and every detail whispered sophistication. But beneath this shimmering surface, something darker simmered. The store's pristine image masked a world of silent tension and cold indifference. Behind the carefully choreographed smiles and impeccable uniforms, an undercurrent of favoritism and unspoken cruelty twisted through the halls like a shadow. Whispers floated in the air, half-heard gossip, sharp glances exchanged in silence, subtle power plays disguised as professionalism. Among the polished floors and sparkling showcases of Everhart Jewelers, Maya Johnson was a quiet force of grace and resilience. At just 25, she carried herself with a calm confidence that went unnoticed by most, but felt deeply by those who crossed her path. Maya's days were long, standing on her feet for hours, navigating the delicate dance of luxury sales with patience and genuine care. She wasn't flashy or loud, nor did she fit the typical mold of what the store celebrated. Maya's charm wasn't in designer clothes or rehearsed smiles, but in the sincerity she showed to every customer, especially those others ignored. Whether it was a tearful elderly woman searching for a memorial locket or a curious little girl mesmerized by princess rings, Maya met them all with warmth and quiet dignity. Raised in a modest neighborhood outside Atlanta, Maya's story was one of perseverance. Growing up in a cramped apartment with her mother, grandmother, and 2 younger brothers, she learned early that kindness and strength often go hand in hand. Her mother worked double shifts as a hospital janitor, tirelessly providing for the family, while her grandmother, a retired teacher, filled their home with wisdom and resilience. Music, old soul and gospel records, wove through their days, a steady heartbeat of hope amid struggle. Maya earned a partial scholarship to college, but when her mother fell ill, she made the hard choice to leave school and support her family. She took on multiple jobs, but Everhart Jewelers became more than just a paycheck. It was a place where she quietly held on to her dreams. Despite her dedication and the genuine connections she built with customers, the store's culture often dismissed her. Bonuses and praise went to others, those who played the corporate game louder or simply fit the image the management favored. Yet Maya stayed true to herself, a steady light in a world that too often looked past her. In the glossy palace of Everhart, where image was everything, she was the invisible heart, and her story was only beginning. Behind the scenes at Everhart Jewelers, where glitz and glamour dazzled customers, there was one man who knew exactly what it meant to be invisible: Marcus Reynolds, the CEO and founder of the company. Now in his early 50s, Marcus had built Everhart from the ground up, starting as a street vendor selling simple silver lockets on a crowded Philadelphia corner. His journey had been anything but easy, shaped by years of hard work, sacrifice, and a fierce determination to rise above the odds. Marcus knew what it was like to be overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed, not just by strangers, but by the very people he worked alongside. His brown skin bore the stories of his past, and his sharp eyes had learned to read people long before they spoke. But somewhere along the way, the company he built had begun to lose more than just money. It was losing its soul. Rumors had been swirling for weeks: missing merchandise, slipping sales, unhappy customers, and glossy reports that didn't quite add up. Marcus sensed something rotten beneath the polished marble floors and sparkling glass cases. The facade of professionalism hid a festering culture of favoritism and silent cruelty. So Marcus made a bold decision. Disguised in faded gray coveralls, pushing a mop bucket, he returned to the floor, anonymous, unseen, a janitor among the employees. This was his way of peeling back the curtain, of seeing with his own eyes what the numbers only whispered. As he moved quietly through the showroom, Marcus observed the subtle dynamics, the way some staff ignored others, the hushed snickers behind backs, the carefully staged smiles that masked disdain. Most importantly, he noticed one person, Maya Johnson. She was the only one who acknowledged him with kindness, the only one who treated him like a human being rather than a shadow. Marcus's heart stirred with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Here was the soul of Everhart, quiet, strong, unrecognized, and around her swirled a storm of neglect. Valuable lesson: the power of integrity, courage, and true leadership. The story of Everhart Jewelers teaches us a profound lesson about the importance of integrity and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when faced with adversity. Maya Johnson, despite being overlooked and marginalized, remained steadfast in her kindness, honesty, and dedication. Her quiet strength illuminated the darkness of injustice and favoritism lurking beneath the polished surface. True leadership, as shown by Marcus Reynolds, goes beyond titles and numbers. It is about humility, stepping down from the pedestal to understand the reality on the ground. It requires courage to confront uncomfortable truths and the determination to restore fairness and dignity to a place that has lost its way. This story reminds us that real value lies not in appearances or status, but in character and actions. It urges organizations and individuals alike to build cultures grounded in respect, equality, and recognition of genuine effort. When people are valued for who they truly are and what they contribute, they, and the whole community, can thrive. For every listener, the takeaway is clear. No matter how invisible or unacknowledged you feel, your integrity and kindness matter. Stand firm in your values, because they are the foundation for lasting respect and meaningful change. And for leaders, this is a call to listen, to act justly, and to lead with empathy. Only then can true transformation happen.